Bitcoin to 200,000 in 2025. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Today's video is going to quickly break down the idea of why that could be the case, only if a number of factors continue to sustain themselves when we're talking about this mad bull run. Let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. So the European markets have had some good news. We're getting good earnings results from companies across the board. Procter & Gamble have come through and done well with their earnings per share. And then, of course, other companies like Merck have come in and done well. We're waiting for Visa data to come out later on at the close. But that sentiment has, of course, kept investors at bay when we're talking about tariffs. So if companies are doing well when tariffs are in play, then people have a positive expectation about where they think the future is likely to end up. Going into it all, you can see the sentiment chart for the stock market is suggesting that smart money is still selling. That means as price is rising, they are selling into that volatility, into retail's optimism that the stock market looks like it's sustaining itself. To back that story up, we go over to the Nasdaq and we can see that it did close on positive volume yesterday, above average, which is great news for a bull run, because if you don't see volume appearing at the all-time highs, then that kind of gives you an idea that there could be weakness coming into play, which would naturally give divergence traders the idea that maybe price is going up, but volume's tapering off, then we might have ourselves a top. But looking on the bottom right here, you can see that the Nasdaq volume is coming in because optimism regarding earnings calls is fueling retail sentiment to just keep buying. At 3 p.m. today, we will be getting the results for the JOLTS job openings, which is coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard, 3 p.m. UK time. There is an expectation that the data is going to come in and show a reduction in the JOLTS job openings. Now, in yesterday's video, we spoke about that already and what that is. But you can see that there is sort of a movement upwards in regards to the JOLTS job openings report. But if the consistency of the labor market is still solidifying itself, that it's strong, then the Federal Reserve has no reason to cut the actual interest rates. Problem is, we go into this article over here and it does dive into the idea that the White House is putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. Now, as we go into it all, it says here, traders price no prospect of a US rate cut this week, that is tomorrow, and continue to lean toward a quarter-point reduction at the Fed's meeting in mid-September. Swap traders' expectations are that they are going to cut in September. 63.7% are believing that we will get to 4 to 4.25%. 34% are edging towards the idea of it keeping it at the same rate. And the only way that that's going to change, in the sense where investors will believe that the Fed is going to cut, is based on the data that we get throughout the rest of this week. Tomorrow, we have the ADP non-farm employment change. And if that comes in and shows that the labor market is strong, then we are edging towards the idea that maybe they won't cut in September. But if we do get even more confirmation from the non-farm payrolls, which will be released on Friday, if that shows us the labor market is slowing down, the Fed will have no choice but to cut the interest rates, because if the interest rates are high and the economy is slowing down from the perspective of the labor market slowing down, then the Fed has to act quick, because it could put themselves into the case of recession. Very unlikely, but if they don't act quick, then they will run the risk of recession. In front of you is a chart from Sentiment Trader that shows the number of assets that are at their 52-week highs. Now, this is what you want to see happening when the markets are moving up. It says here that for the first time following a 6-month low, the percentage of stocks recording a 52-week high for members in the consumer, discretionary, financial, industrial, and technology sectors simultaneously has exceeded 10%. This is very good to suggest the idea that the stock market is performing on the back of interest from investors. We can back that up with the idea that smart money is selling into that. We can back the idea that the stock market is coming in with strong volume. And the idea of this chart over here is suggesting that if this is happening, that the stock market still has more room to go up. Now, for cryptocurrency, Citi analysts are coming out with a logic that Bitcoin's price is going to hit 200K in the next 5 months. The article does go on to say that in a bearish scenario, it could drop down to as much as 64,000. However, it says that the 100K point would be a valid buying opportunity. Going over into Bitcoin's price action right now, you can see that Bitcoin is pulling back after its nice little run to the upside in the Asian session. But you're going to get this with Bitcoin unless we know exactly where we are with regards to the jobs data and, of course, the plethora of data that's coming out this week, That's before that comes out. Bitcoin's probably going to range out, but I do have an expectation that even with the earnings from Microsoft and Meta that's coming out tomorrow, and then of course you've got Apple and Amazon, MasterCard. Once all that data does come out, it's going to fuel the idea of whether or not the stock market is sustaining this move to the upside on optimistic investors' sentiment. But more importantly, if the earnings come in, it just shows that the US economy is showing such resilience and people are going to feel like they're missing out on a big thing. Investors will plow into the marketplace. PayPal coming out with some flavor. They're going to now introduce an option to pay with crypto, and the coins that they're allowing are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even meme coins. Thank God they're not utilizing XRP. But this overall, jokes aside, is positive where you're seeing big money companies that are actually utilizing cryptocurrency. I'm telling you, now that the Genius Bill has come into play, that is the passport for companies, especially payment vendors, to start introducing cryptocurrency into mainstream payments. In front of you is the Coinbase Premium Index. Now, the way you use this is it helps you understand if US investors are actively buying and selling Bitcoin. It can be a little bit misleading. In front of you, where it's green, it's where investors are buying. Where it's red is where investors are selling. Wrong! It's not where investors are selling. Why? Because when Bitcoin drops, who's buying it? Here we go. In front of you is the order flow. Look what happened yesterday. All these orders here. Look, someone bought Bitcoin yesterday, 117,666 for 29 million.4. Go over a little bit more. Someone bought another 2.8 million. Keep on going up. Someone bought $41 million. And it was an initial order for 1.23. So some dude planted an order at 118,100 and said, I'm just going to wait for my order to get filled. Then all of a sudden, some other dude came in and saw, hold on a second, 118,000, keyhole number. You know what? I'm going to pick up some Bitcoin and transacted 41.74 million. What am I trying to say? Everywhere that Bitcoin goes, it's going to grab someone's attention and the commitment's going to come in. And when you see that commitment coming in, you can naturally then make the assumption that when price is going down, someone's stepping in to buy it because they're buying it on discount. When you go over to the Coinbase Premium Index, the logic says that when it's green, that's when you are selling. Why? Because that's when someone is buying that is actually being sold to. Go into the chart again. Look what you've got here. Someone sold Bitcoin on the peak of a move yesterday, 12.38 million. They sell it when it rises. Now, when the Coinbase Premium Index is starting to show price is starting to pull back, naturally, the logic is saying that it could be institutional investors offloading. Back in that story up here, you got here, it says, is institutional profit taking about to derail Bitcoin's rally? In my opinion, the fact that Bitcoin's price has come down, and we've seen, of course, that 80,000 Bitcoin that has been moved into an exchange. Well, it says over here, you've got this report suggests that a firm offloaded around 80,000 Bitcoin, which points to institutional activity rather than retail-driven selling. But you look at Bitcoin's price, it is doing very, very well to contain itself, even if there is that amount of Bitcoin. But I don't believe that that institutional firm is going to be selling Bitcoin in one lump sum, and especially when it's going down. Naturally, you're going to think that they're going to be selling it in increments as it moves up. So unless that sell order comes in of 80,000 Bitcoin in one go, that's going to rock the marketplace. They are going to break that order up into an iceberg and sell it as it moves up in price higher and higher. It's no different to when you see the order flow showing that. So for example, you got one guy here that sold $35 million worth of Bitcoin. Go up again, you got a guy who sold $41 million worth of Bitcoin. Go up again, you got another one, $35 million worth of Bitcoin. And then you go to the top again, $42 million worth of Bitcoin. That, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is an iceberg order. So with this order right here, about 80,000 Bitcoin being thrown into the marketplace, which is going to cause a problem for Bitcoin to go to the downside, the only reason that price will go down is if data suggests that the Federal Reserve is not going to cut interest rates, investors are not going to like that, and that will naturally then end up leading the stock market to take a little bit of a tumble to the downside, and Bitcoin will follow suit. Why? Because Bitcoin has got Wall Street mentality attached to it. Speaking of Wall Street, going over to the Arkham, we haven't seen any developments on the ETF, still at 733,000, $96 billion worth of assets under management with BlackRock. Going over into it, Grayscale at it again, moving Bitcoin. And there's been a lot of activity with Grayscale, but they could be getting ready for what could be an explosive move to the upside. And that's all going to be based on whatever happens on the FOMC. One good reason for Bitcoin to go up is if on Thursday, The Bank of Japan says that they're not going to be increasing their interest rates in the near future. That will then do what? That will then solidify the idea of investors going into dollars, okay? And when they go into dollars, I told you, don't sleep on the dollar. They'll go into dollars and then they will equally go over to the stock market because the stock market right now is at an all-time high. And they've got every reason to go into the stock market because earnings from companies are doing wonderful. Everything is optimistic. Cryptocurrency adoption, happy days. The general sentiment across the board is everything is doing good because earnings are coming out and companies are beating those expectations. That is fueling the risk on sentiment. Now, as we go in towards the open today, ladies and gentlemen, you've got the actual JOLTS data coming out at 3 p.m. UK time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. Just be mindful of price action during that time. But me personally, once that data comes out, I believe the market might be in a bit of a range-like formation because tomorrow is a massive day in the markets, which means it's FOMC. So if you are new, make sure you subscribe because we will be going live tomorrow for the FOMC and we're going to know exactly where Jerome Powell's stance is in regards to the interest rates and how impactful tariffs are going to be on the path of inflation in the near future. That's going to decide whether Bitcoin's going to go up or down. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, why the hell did I blink? Listen, mad love and respect, and I'll tune into you all tomorrow. Peace. Stop blinking, man.